This is more than simply a message. It is supernatural affirmation of what your spirit already understands. They're weeping, not just sobbing, but breaking down in secret. Their quiet bursting into a torrent of remorse so tremendous that it shakes the very basis of their universe. Why? Because you, the one they humiliated, deceived, and dismissed as finished, just changed the script without saying anything. Something tremendous has occurred in the spiritual world, a karmic thunderclap that no one saw coming except you, the chosen one. They gambled against you, and now they're shedding tears that stain pillows and break egos. You did not want vengeance. Rather, you sought peace, and your vibration alone accomplished what all of their theatrics and manipulation could not. What you're going to hear is the secret narrative of their private breakdown, a deep dive into heavenly justice and psychological warfare that occurs when a special soul is mistreated. Sit tight, for this is the affirmation you've been looking for. Welcome, chosen ones. Never underestimate a person's quiet anguish when forced to smile in public while their soul aches in private. The secret fights you waged, the tears no one saw, the times you felt completely alone, they weren't in vain. They forged you. And now, triumph has arrived. It is a triumph so loud and powerful that it has spread murmurs throughout the city and villages, leaving those who have harmed you dumbfounded. Let's discuss about what transpired in the invisible world, since there has been a huge upheaval. They're weeping. These are not just tears of despair. This is the guttural, soul-wrenching crying that necessitates 3 restroom stops simply to collect oneself. It's the type of sobbing that forces a person to look in the mirror and examine every life decision that has taken them to this point of crushing sorrow. Why the abrupt and complete breakdown? Because you, the one they gambled against, gossiped about, and were certain would fail, just reversed the whole script in real time. You did it without warning, with no indication of vengeance, and without lifting a hand against them. Your win was accomplished with nothing more than a change in your frequency. That's correct. Your energy, alignment, and tranquility accomplished what their confusion, drama, and negativity couldn't. They fell to their knees. Here's a psychological truth that backs up this spiritual reality with scientific evidence. Neuroscientists have shown that the same brain regions that light up during extreme physical pain also engage during moments of social rejection, great remorse, and seeing someone you mistreated triumph gloriously. So, when these people finally realized how badly they had mistreated a precious and chosen person like you, the psychological and spiritual disintegration became all too real. They are not just wailing behind closed doors in the dead of night, when their ego has no place to hide. They are mourning. They are lamenting the loss of power over you. They are saddened by their loss of access to your light, energy, and spirit. Most of all, they mourn the loss of their favorite fantasy, the one in which you would never, ever ascend. But now comes the real kicker, a miraculous narrative twist that has their soul in a chokehold. You didn't just emerge from the ashes they attempted to bury you in. You become the exact reason they can't sleep at night. And it isn't because you intentionally injured them or wanted to bring them anguish. It's because, in your rise, in your radiance, in your unconcerned contentment, they were finally forced to recognize the extent of their loss. They witnessed a mirror of their own darkness in your brightness, and it is causing their soul to itch in areas that no amount of diversion, reasoning, or even a frantic Google search can relieve. So sit tight and take a big breath, because what you're about to hear isn't your typical "look at me now" motivational narrative. This is a lesson in divine justice, a case study in spiritual warfare, and a symphony of karmic thunder, all wrapped up in one brilliantly designed, spiritually choreographed narrative twist. 1. Your survival destroyed the whole narrative. They have now realized that your existence, your prospering, has completely destroyed the whole false narrative they created around you. This understanding struck them like a fully laden vehicle on a dark highway. There was no warning, no seatbelt, and no airbag to absorb the impact. For a long time, they were immensely confident, even arrogant, in their idea that the warped version of you they constructed would last forever. This was the version of you people talked about in private and hinted at in public without ever saying your name. They branded you as the broken one, the unstable one, the one who was too much or too sensitive. They said you were never going to make it. They uttered half-truths and blatant falsehoods with frightening certainty, knowing that most people in their circle would not bother fact-checking or directly asking for your side of the story. They relied on your quiet, misinterpreting it as evidence of your guilt or weakness. They expected your hardships to be permanent, providing them with entertainment and ego boosts. And when you fell silent, not because you were defeated, but because you were mending and maturing privately, they rejoiced. They had a celebration in their heads, certain that they had triumphed. In their narrow view, you were done. The tale was written, their success was certain, and the people around them believed the deception. They believed it wholeheartedly, until you didn't just survive. You changed. You returned to the scene, but as an entirely different person. You were stronger, more focused, and exuded a deep feeling of tranquility. There was no pandemonium clinging to you, no bitterness in your words, just an unwavering, unshakable calm. And it was the actual earthquake. That earthquake shattered the foundations of their whole universe. Because the weak, damaged version of you that they meticulously depicted to everyone no longer exists. And everyone sees it. Everyone observes the clear difference between their words and your reality. People who previously questioned you are now obviously perplexed, doubting the tales they were taught. People who were before aloof are now immensely intrigued and pulled to your new brightness. And who co-signed their slander? They're sweating. They pace their floors at night. They're grieving behind closed doors, not because they suddenly adore you or regret their acts, but because they've lost complete control over your image. The hideous mask they attempted to put onto your face is melting away beneath the fire of your natural radiance, revealing the unmistakable, bright reality of who you've always been. This isn't a straightforward example of remorse. It is pure terror. They realize, with horror, that they no longer have the range, authority, or credibility to rewrite this tale. You are live, breathing evidence that truth never dies. It only takes time to manifest itself. And the craziest, most beautiful aspect of this heavenly justice? You did not have to say anything. You did not argue. You did not publish passive-aggressive rants. You did not argue your case to anybody. You just become the proof. Their previous comments suddenly seem silly, fragile, and spiteful in the face of your overwhelming truth. They aren't sobbing because you returned. They're sobbing because you came back whole, and your recovery single-handedly derailed their whole planned show. What they attempted to bury has risen higher than they could have anticipated, and now they must confront the heartbreaking fact that they produced their own agony by underestimating the strength of a chosen one's capacity to rise. 2. They see that your glow is not cosmetic, but cosmic. Initially, they rejected your sudden glow. They explained it as something shallow, something at the surface level. Perhaps it was a new haircut, a new dress, or a well-maintained social media account. They convinced themselves your grin was simply a ruse. They assumed that the glow that people were seeing and commenting on could be purchased, copied, or faked with the right filter. However, when they observe its consistency and intensity, they are coming to the horrifying realization that it is much, much deeper. And this information has shaken them to their very core. This glow you have, this brilliant aura, was not developed at a salon or generated by an app. It was formed in the flames of solitude. It sprang from the breakdowns you had in private. It was grown during the long, silent seasons of spiritual struggle when no one on earth cheered for you, but God and the whole host of heaven did. The indisputable glow people see now is the direct consequence of every challenge you overcame, every sorrow you shed, and every betrayal you turned into insight. And they know, deep down in some part of their psyche that they attempt to ignore, that they could never have gone through what you did. That is what has left them terribly shaken. It isn't your appearance. It is not your confidence. It's terrifying to think that your light comes straight from the flames, and they have no idea how you survived. They are beginning to realize that your appeal is not about worldly popularity, but about heavenly presence. It's the unexplained way people halt and turn their heads when you enter a room. It's the way your calm vibe can suddenly transform a difficult situation, even if you haven't spoken a word. This light, your cosmic signature, cannot be replicated. It's spiritual. It is an example of divine timing. It is the high frequency of someone who has mended the most profound aspects of themselves, elements for which no one has ever apologized. They are now drowning in a sea of frustration because they are unable to solve the equation. They cannot purchase it from a shop. They cannot borrow it from a buddy. They can't keep faking it for long. And if they try to mimic your energy, it always falls flat, seeming empty and inauthentic. Since your glow is the indisputable outcome of spiritual resonance, not a frantic appeal for attention. And, my friend, alignment cannot be photoshopped. They used to laugh at you. They used to ridicule your depth. They believed you were strange, excessively sensitive, or just too different. But now they are sobbing bitter tears because the traits they disregarded have turned out to be the same things others are now passionately attracted to. Your aura of tranquility, your steadfast grace, and your quick judgment. It's a magnetic force, and they know with agonizing, gut-wrenching knowledge that it's impossible to steal. They are learning that the beautiful light you bear does not stem from the world or their approval. It comes straight from God. And competing with something holy is a lost struggle every time. That's why they're crying. Your radiance didn't originate from them, and now they're forced to admit that it never required them in the first place. If this message speaks to the very center of your being, if you feel the truth of these words vibrating in your soul, it is time to connect with your tribe. This is no coincidence. Subscribe to God Connection today. You are not just following a channel. You are raising your hand in the spiritual world, expressing that you are ready to fully embrace your power and connect with others who understand your path. Your subscription builds this network of light. Now let us proceed with this wonderful revelation. 3. They waited for your breakdown, not your breakthrough. This is the most painful aspect of the reality for them, the revelation that hurts the hardest. While you were in the trenches, fighting for your life in silence, they were watching from the sidelines, popcorn in hand, secretly hoping and praying that you would surrender. Every setback you encountered, every impediment in your road, they not only observed but also savored. They fed off the notion that you wouldn't make it through. They smiled pleasantly at you, providing fake words of encouragement, but deep down, they were waiting for the moment you'd crack, collapse, vanish, or perhaps kill yourself. They saw your anguish as a sort of amusement. Your suffering helped them feel superior, validating their own life choices. It offered them a distorted and false feeling of control over their own chaotic lives. They believed that if you broke down, it would prove everything they had been telling themselves and others about you, that you were unstable, too much, and just weren't designed for this life. So, when you began disappearing from specific locations and individuals, they mistook it for the start of your big collapse. They high-fived in secret, sure that their pessimistic predictions would come true. They had no clue this was the beginning of your spectacular climb. They had no idea that throughout that lengthy, peaceful time, you weren't breaking apart, but rather being methodically reconstructed by the divine. They couldn't see the holy labor being done behind the scenes, away from inquisitive eyes. They had no idea of the restless nights spent in prayer, the deep shadow work you were bravely performing, or the profound spiritual truth you were learning while they were laughing at your expense. They had no idea that you were morphing into something so strong, so aligned, that you would become impenetrable to them. And now they're sobbing because the moment they secretly longed for, your breakdown, never happened. Instead, the moment they dreaded the most occurred. You made it out. Not only did you get out, but you were utterly unrecognizable. You were stronger, smarter, and completely immune to the low vibrational drama that they utilized to entice and manipulate you. You've advanced in ways they never expected and in ways their restricted brains couldn't have imagined. And what's the worst thing for them? They cannot stop it. They cannot reverse it. And they absolutely cannot compete with it. Your breakthrough was neither loud nor showy. It was not about vengeance. It was the calm, dignified type of triumph that cuts deeper than 1,000 screaming shouts. It's the type of triumph that has people dumbfounded, groping for excuses, and sick with a strong combination of doubt and jealousy. They aren't just sobbing because you created it. They're sobbing because everything they believed would break you instead strengthened you. And now they're faced with the heartbreaking, soul-crushing truth. They badly misjudged someone who was divinely appointed and was never intended to fail. They never received the breakdown they had hoped for. What about your breakthrough? It just broke them. 4. Their conscience just got a karmic jumpstart. Something huge has just clicked in their minds. This wasn't a little epiphany or a passing notion that could be easily disregarded. This was a devastating, all-encompassing truth bomb that left them spiritually and emotionally shaken. It was the type of moment that stops time and compels them to reconsider the tower of falsehoods they'd been telling themselves for years. It was a time when even their tremendous ego could no longer shield them from the searing glare of the truth. Deep-seated guilt, which had been buried behind layers of hubris, denial, and diversion, is now emerging from its untimely burial. They honestly believed they could keep it buried forever. They believed that time, new relationships, and other distractions would finally kill it for good. But regret, particularly remorse caused by betraying a chosen one, has a way of reviving itself. It comes back with a fury, particularly when the person you mistreated begins to rise with unmistakable, glowing favor from God. All of the horrible memories they had carefully pushed aside are now following them like unrelenting shadows that refuse to be ignored. And the guilt does not whisper, it yells. It cries in the deafening solitude of their isolated evenings when no one else is around. It shouts at them in their nightmares, reliving their mistakes in high definition. It yells at them from the mirrors they now find difficult to look at. It screams in the way their chest tightens with fear whenever your name comes up in conversation. It shouts through the unexplained headaches, panic attacks, and erratic mood swings. Because guilt, when it emerges from its sleep, is loud, aggressive, and demands to be heard. They're sobbing not for you, but for what they did to you. Their tears aren't about your achievement or glow-up. It is about their awful actions. They are disturbed by the exact role they played in your suffering. Calculated manipulation, pathological falsehoods, cold-hearted betrayal, and casual violence. It's all hitting them at once now, like a tidal wave of responsibility, and they can't ignore or justify it anymore. They are persuaded that they have passed a spiritual boundary that their soul will never forget. And now karma has them in a spiritual stranglehold. This isn't simply remorse, it's a consequence. Things are beginning to come apart in their personal lives, and they are finally, painfully, connecting the connections. Opportunities are sliding past their fingertips like sand. Relationships are becoming colder and distant. Their feeling of calm is being taken from them. They're understanding that this isn't simply a run of bad luck. It's the direct, energetic boomerang of the poison they hurled at you, returning 10 times louder and 10 times stronger. They're trying to breathe, but karma's hand won't let up. And the weirdest part? It's only just started. Their conscience is no longer silent, and the truth is no longer an optional extra. The universe is forcing them to confront each and every harmful decision they have made. And the person they attempted to bury has now become the ghost that disturbs their tranquility. 5. You didn't need revenge, you needed peace. This insight effectively terminated their whole deceptive foundation. They suspected you were scheming against them. They were confident you were enraged, spiteful, and driven by a desire for vengeance. That was their comfort zone. Believing you were trapped in a low-vibration state of bitterness, stewing in your misery and obsessed about getting even, really helped them sleep at night. It encouraged them to assume they still had control over your energy and attention. They convinced themselves that you could never completely go on without receiving some kind of closure from them, an apology, an admission of guilt, or a big act of justice. But the deadliest reality struck them like a flash of lightning. You just let go. You did not yell. You did not share them on social media. You did not pursue them for the apology you knew you would never get. You have just unleashed everything. The anguish, the drama, the anticipation that they would one day rectify their wrongs. You let it all slip away as if it never belonged to you in the first place. You went ahead not just physically by shifting locales, but also emotionally, spiritually, and psychologically. You recovered your valuable energy and channeled it into your own recovery, establishing a beautiful life and maturing into the person God always meant you to be. You did not just walk away, you rose. And your peace now speaks with more volume and power than wrath ever could. And then you flourished. You did not seek vengeance, but rather God. You continually chose calm over wrath. You chose progress over gossip. You prioritized purpose above pettiness. The success you are now receiving is a direct, concrete result of your spiritual surrender. And those who anticipated front-row tickets to see you suffer are now forced to observe your plenty from the cheap seats. Nothing is more horrifying to a narcissist or a controller than being fully removed from their victim's life without a word of confrontation. You did not respond in the manner they anticipated and were prepared for. You did not plead, explain, or passionately attempt to show your value. You become a ghost, not in a game of silent treatment, but in a deep act of spiritual progress. And for someone who relies on control and attention, a quiet absence seems like death. They are sobbing because they no longer have access to you, not just as a person, but also to your energy. You were their supplier. You were the person they prodded for responses, drained for confirmation, and relied on to maintain their emotional supremacy. And now the door is shut, the account is barred, you've forgotten about them, and they're entirely irrelevant to your next chapter. Watching their former victim triumph without ever fighting a battle is severe psychological anguish for them. They were planned for a battle. They were armed and ready to battle. But you never showed up on the battlefield. Instead, you manifested your divine purpose, glowing, shielded by God, and absolutely untouchable. That is what really breaks them. It's not your quiet or remoteness that has ruined them. It's the plain reality that you didn't need retribution. Your tranquility did it for you. You are live evidence that they mishandled someone heavenly. And every time they see you gleaming, hear your name quoted with reverence, or realize you have become spiritually impenetrable, they are brutally reminded of what they threw away and can never get back. There is no way to reverse such karmic consequences. And the most lovely aspect of it all, this is just the start of your ascent. If this message speaks to your spirit and validates your path, please share it. There are other chosen ones who need to hear this and be reminded that their tranquility is their strength. To continue getting heavenly insights and strengthening your personal connection, subscribe to the God Connection channel right now. Consider donating $10 to support this holy work and help us distribute this light to even more individuals in need by clicking the Super Thanks button below. Your support is a vital energy exchange that drives our goal. God bless you.